we're talking about the latest injury updates around the Washington Commanders. We're also going to be talking about what head coach Dan Quinn had to say after a tough loss yesterday to the Dallas Cowboys. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, just like Jayden Daniels is going to be hitting, Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz, and many others for multiple touchdowns this upcoming season. And so in exchange for hitting that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Washington Commanders. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Washington Commanders Insider family as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it, as we are going to start with talking about what head coach Dan Quinn had to say in his presser today. And so if you want to watch the entire presser, head over to the Commanders YouTube page and you'll be able to see that. And so just paraphrasing this and really looking at the key points out of his presser. And so, look, I think that the first major key point that we got out of his presser today was the injury updates. And so starting with Dorance Armstrong. And so we got some tough news around Dorance Armstrong today, because it looks like that Dorance Armstrong suffered a significant knee injury and he's going to be out for the season. And so this is a tough loss for the Commanders defense. And this is tough with Dorance Armstrong because he was really having a very good season. And so, for the Commanders, this is now 3 defensive ends that are out for the season. You have Dietrich Wise Jr., he's out for the season. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, he's out for the season. Then now you have Dorance Armstrong out for the season. Then also, too, you just signed Drake Jackson, and, he's not out for the season, but he's on the injured reserve. And so where this team goes at defensive end, that's going to be interesting. And just going back to Dorance Armstrong and just really why this is tough for him, because he was having a very good season. He's at 5.5 sacks, and so he's already ahead of what he had a season ago at the 5 sacks. And I just think that the way that Dorance Armstrong was playing this season, I think that he surely could have been, a player that got to 10 plus sacks this year with the way that he was able to get to quarterbacks and finish. And so we just won't know because now he's out for the season. But this is a very tough loss here for a defense that is trying to figure some things out moving forward. So, that was the first major injury update that we got here in this one. And then next, he talks about Jayden Daniels. And so with Jayden Daniels, Coach Dan Quinn says that he did get an MRI on his hamstring. He said it's not significant or long-term. He did say that he's unsure on Monday night against the Kansas City Chiefs. And he did say that Thursday he will know something else. And so, look, I think that it's a good sign when he's saying that it's not significant and he's also saying it's not long-term. I think that if you watch this game and you saw him give the thumbs up after getting out of the tent and then also to running back, like that's a good sign as well. But with it being a hamstring and then also too, Jayden Daniels and his ability to really extend plays, get outside the pocket and make some things happen and stuff like that, like you want to make sure that he's 100% and he's able to do the things that just really make him great as a player. And then number 2, you have to look at this and say, this is your franchise quarterback. And so it is a tough situation right now with the Commanders team and just really where they are in the season. And they need to, get some things going because, as a week goes by, it just continues to get later here. And so, this team has got to put some good football games together and start getting these wins. And so a tough loss right now. And that's if he's not going to play, which I would assume that the Commanders are not going to rush him back. I think that they're going to be fine with Marcus Mariota starting and everything else. But, there's other things that the offense is going to have to try to figure out, but you don't want to rush your franchise quarterback back out there. And so, so that's an update here with Jayden Daniels. And so next, not really necessarily an injury update, but I do think that this is something that is positive really out of all the injuries that we've talked about with this team. And that's with Sam Cosmi. And so Dan Quinn does say that Sam Cosmi looked really good out there. He said that, he played a great game. He did say that he did have like one mental error out there. And he also said that too, pass protection will need to get a little bit sharper for him. But for the most part, aside from that one error that he had, he was like, he looked pretty good out there. And so that's a good sign knowing that Sam Cosmi has been able to come off the IR, after a tough knee injury last season, and he's able to jump right back in like that. So, you would really think that as the season goes along, that he's only going to get better, which I do think he is, because he's just going to get sharper now that he's going out there at game speed and everything else and getting hit and stuff like that. So, this is good for the offense, especially when it comes down to running the football, which is something that the Commanders have done well. And I also think that they've done pretty well as far as pass protect as well. And so I think that this last game, it's tough because both quarterbacks got sacked twice. But for the most part, I think that the Commanders have done a great job as far as giving quarterbacks time to throw the football down the field. So good that you have Sam Cosmi trending in the right direction. And so that is one thing that Dan Quinn talked about. And so next, look, I think that one of the main points that Dan Quinn talks about here, and I think that really this is kind of like the bottom line stuff, is that he says that the team is consistent with inconsistency right now. And look, I'm right there with him. I think that if you've been watching this team, it's just been a roller coaster at this point. There's times where the team plays really, really well, and then there's times where they do not play well at all. And so it's really putting it all together. And I think that, you just have to get to a point where when you're playing into these games, if you get beat, you get beat. That's fine. But you can't be in situations where you'll turn on the tape or you look at the stat sheet and you say to yourself, we beat ourselves. Like you can't have that. And so that just, kind of goes into just really getting consistent and getting back to the commanders standards, really, as far as playing some good football. And so, I also love the fact that he says this in his presser that, as far as like assessing the team and everything, he's like, where are you? Where are you going? And then what bearing is needed? And he was like, right now, this team is just off course right now. And so, the team is trying to do a course correct, obviously, at a tough situation right now with the schedule that's coming up and everything else. We talked about that in this last video. And so just really now, the focus needs to be sharper. And that is something that Dan Quinn talks about, and just really, focusing on their focus, right? And so, it sounds very simple, but it's going to be a challenge right now for the Commanders, because you have the Chiefs coming up Monday. You have the Seahawks coming up after that, then Lions, Dolphins, and Broncos. And you have these injuries. And so one of the things that he does talk about too after the Dorance Armstrong news is that, he's going to meet with Adam Peters, and they have to try to figure out what the team is going to do there, at that defensive end situation and everything else. And, one of the things too that he does mention, before we jump out of here, is that he said that it's not a one coach, one player type of fix. And so again, just paraphrasing this, but it just sounds like at the end of the day, he's going to try to figure out how to get everyone to do better here, and everybody to just kind of come together collectively and just try to figure some things out. And so that's Dan Quinn in his presser today. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking as far as just the injury updates. Once again, we have Dorance Armstrong, who is going to be out for the rest of the season. That's 3 defensive ends out. You have one that's on IR 2. Jayden Daniels, not anything significant. We'll find out some more about him Thursday, but I just would expect that they are not going to just rush him out there. And so I do think he would miss some time, but that's just speculating. The next, Sam Cosmi, sounds like that he had a very good game, just had maybe one error out there that he noticed, but I think that that's good that he's trending in the right direction. And then lastly, I think another key, out of what he had to say is just, again, it's not a one coach, one player type of fix. I'm seeing a lot of that, where people are kind of looking at certain players and things like that. And so collectively, the team is going to have to get it together, get consistent, and just really get back to the Commanders' standards. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. And as we always say, look, go Commanders, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.